Hello and welcome back to the Faith and Culture Show. I'm Catherine Camp, your hostess for the show. As you know, this is where we dig into all types of topics, and we do this intentionally. We do this to educate ourselves about the culture around us and what other Christians are doing and how they're stepping up. This is how we learn. So we want to have those conversations that count in our community, conversations with an eternal perspective. Today, we're going to be covering the topic, God and government. This is an important topic because I just got a text this past week from a South African pastor who's really considering moving to the United States because things are really heating up. In fact, they made a public statement. The government made a public statement last week that all pastors must sign in to the government and let them know when they're going to preach and where they're going to preach. And they have to preach something that the government says, okay. That's not right. They're fighting for their lives over there. And I think this is such wonderful timing for me to bring in Miss Bernadette Smith. She's currently serving as the co-chairman of the Michigan Republican Party and has been a dedicated leader within the Republican movement for many years. She's guided by a biblical worldview, my kind of woman. She champions constitutional principles, election integrity, and cultural unity. Her work reflects a deep commitment to uplifting communities across Michigan and the nation. Bernadette has held several influential roles, which include, but this is not all inclusive, she has been with the Michigan GOP ethnic vice chair, building bridges across cultures and organizations, ethnic outreach and rallies statewide. She has been the chairwoman of the American Project, overseeing strategic efforts and partnerships, the co-founder of Vote Your Vision, which is an organization educating and mobilizing voters on election integrity. She has been on the state committee woman. She's a state committee woman of her 2nd district. She's been a GOP National Convention delegate in 2020 and a precinct delegate in the 28th precinct. She's an active member in both the Faith and Family Coalition and Turning Point Action's Faith Coalition. Bernadette is a leader both locally and nationally, known for her ability to unite people around shared values and political solutions. Her mission is to inspire informed civic engagement and promote policies rooted in truth and freedom. And I'm so excited for you all to get to know her. She is really a very busy person, and it's an honor to have her here today. Welcome, Bernadette, to the Faith and Culture Show.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I want to get right into, what led you, I know you're a Christian, and I think it's really a benefit for us when Christians get involved in government, but a lot of people are very shy about jumping into this arena. So if you could just start telling us a little bit about why and how you got into this.
Sure. Just going back to the beginning, decades ago, I remember coming home. I'll briefly, and you let me know, how much time I have, Catherine, okay? But I remember coming home from a convention, a church convention, actually, and I was invited to an event. It was a Republican woman event here in my town, about half an hour from where I am. And I said to myself, I'm tired. I'm not going. So I told the person that I was not coming. And when I laid my head down on my pillow, the Lord said, you didn't ask me. And I asked, Lord, do you want me to go? He said, get up and go. But by that time, I said, if I go, it's going to be over with. I have to drive a half an hour away. But he said, get up and go. So when he speaks, you go. So I did. I got up, showered. And when I arrived there, Catherine, all the Republican women, the Federation, Gettr Women Republican Club, they were there, but they got started late for some reason. So I was not late. I was on time. And when I arrived, they were introducing me to some people. And one of the ladies walked up to me like shortly after that and said, will you be our next speaker? This is for the following month. And I immediately said, yes, I will. But between that, before that, I helped even when Dick DeVos was running for governor back against Governor Granholm. I literally helped him. I had my kids, and we went out and we passed petitions out. We went out and we knocked doors for him, and we just wanted to get a Republican in as our governor. So and also working on different Senate races and taking our children door to door with us as we were campaigning on behalf of different Senate race and House race and so forth. So when I began to just follow the voice of the Lord, I did just that. So I spoke at the next meeting, and then they asked me would I come on board and be a part of them. It seemed good. They were just a wonderful conservative women. Not all were Christians, but a lot were. And so as I stayed with them, we began to just do many things within our city. We began to just educate. And then they asked me would I run to become their vice president and for the Ford woman. And I, of course, I pray about everything because I think it's so important that we get the heartbeat of God if we're going in the field and more, how much more in government, taking that mountain back. He said, do it. And it was a unanimous vote. I became vice president. And then after that, I served a few years. They asked me to be president. And I ran and I became president of the Judeo Ford Women Republican Club. And our president, Gerald Ford, his family allowed us to use that name. And we were so blessed to take on that name. And so then the Lord began to deal with my heart. And in between that, there were some heavy battles that came and personal battles, not at home, but in governmental wise. And the housing market crashed. We lost everything. With our children, we lost everything, Catherine. And the devil thought that would be a setback for us because as I went to get help, which I regret at this time, but yet the Lord is using it now to become a platform, part of a platform as I continue forth in government. But when I went to get food for our 8 children, and I had a sick baby who they said she was going to die, and I was going from the courtroom to the intensive care unit. So that was they wanted me to abort my child. They even encouraged me to abort her. We did not abort at all. And so now she's older. And to make a long story short, when they came after me, it was a lie, the biggest lie. But I remember looking up toward heaven. That's why I'm so thankful for prayer. I'm so thankful to have the connection with the throne room of God, because when we're in the heat of a battle, we can look to him and get answers from him. So I did that. I said, Lord, am I done? Is my work done with you? I mean, I'm coming from this lie, treacherous lie, to the intensive care unit. They're saying my daughter will die. She's not going to live. And I heard the Lord say this, which I think is so pivotal, Catherine, as we move forward in government and God's people. He said this to me. He said, keep going. That's what he said. Just keep going. So I'm like, I can do that. I'll keep going. I'll keep running my race. I'll keep depending on you. I keep going to you, getting orders from you. So I did keep going. And it brings me to now. A few years back, the Lord asked me to run for state committee woman I didn't want to do that. And so when I'm asked to do it by people around me, and then the Lord said, you didn't ask me. I said, Lord, we have 10 days before the vote, and you're asking me to run. I'm running up against an incumbent and that has won, I think 1 or 2 times. He said, I want you to do this. And I said, okay, I'll do it, right? And 10 days, I said, well, how should I run? See, this is why, Catherine, prayer is so important, and acknowledging God in government, because he knows everything about everything. He knows strategic moves that we should make and what's coming next. And he told me, he said, I want you to, he even said how much I would win by. And he said, I want you to, when you get up to speak to the delegation, I don't want you talking about your credentials and all that you've done. I want you to talk about the family. The family. And so he said, no, don't talk about what you've done and where you've worked and how you've helped different candidates and your position as president of the 4 women or previous president. I want you to talk about the family. I said, I would do. So I got up and I talked about the importance of family, which our world is trying to remove the family unit out. They want to destroy the family unit. So I began to talk about the family. Literally, I had a standing ovation. To make a long story short, I literally won by, at that moment, I think 90%. And just by obeying the voice of the Lord and talking about family in a political environment. And so I won that race, and I began to work and do the job. We have to work. We have to go out and educate the people, right? So I did just that. And then it came around for me to run a second term, but then there was a position that opened up which was the ethnic vice chair, which they asked me, they came to me and said, will you run for this statewide now ethnic vice chair position for the party? And I said, no. And then I said, I don't even like that word ethnic. What does that mean?
Yeah. I think it's so divisive. I don't like it either. Yeah.
And that's what I thought. I said, no, I don't like that word. And I don't think he minds me saying this. I remember Peter Myers, who was our congressman at one time, a very young, wonderful young man. Peter said to me, Bernadette, when you get that position, you need to change that word ethnic. He didn't like it either. I said, I know, Peter. I said, Congressman, I don't like it either. But when I looked up the word ethnic, it meant bringing different ethnicity together. And I said, well, I can do that. And, I can do that because I love people, I love nations, and I love unity. So when I got the orders from the Lord, I ran. And literally I ran with 3-person race, but the Lord even told me what I would win by, just by me saying I will run. And so, but I strategically obeyed him, and I ran the campaign the way he asked me to do it. And I had people around me, again, talk about the family, talk about how effective, what Michigan needs and what you will bring to Michigan. And he told me what to say. Literally, people don't understand this, but the Lord does speak. He does give us guidelines. He brings people like you, Catherine, other people alongside us that will say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And I knew that was from the Lord. So I grabbed it. I said, yes, that means a lot to me. I will speak to that. To make a long story short, 3-person race, I ran. You had to get 51% to 50% for it to be no runoff. So to make a long story short, I got out of the 3-person race 49.99.9, and people were saying she really won, guys. Let's give it up. But then the girl that got 20% said, no, I want to run off, and so we did. We had a runoff, and literally I kept winning and winning and winning. And they came to me and said, Bernadette, you're way in the head. Do you want us to stop, or do you want us to continue to count? And I said, you can stop it. And when they stopped it, I literally ran by the percentage that God said I would win by. Isn't that amazing? And I won. So bring it back up to co-chair. I'm not even the RNC race. I ran that race and I was bigly winning. And this is why I'm continually fighting for our delegate rights and fighting for integrity, election integrity. I was winning bigly, and then they decided, we're going to stop 23 counties from voting, because those 23 counties what was voting for myself. So that race ended up in I won, but I won the race if they had allowed the 23 counties to vote, and that which was so horrible that they would take away the rights of duly elected delegates. And so that's why I'm fighting hard to have delegates' Bill of Rights here in Michigan, and hopefully have spread throughout our country. So then I ran for, they asked me would I run for co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party. And I met with them, and I sensed the Lord said, do this. And I ran, and we won by 70+% to become Michigan's co-chair for the party. And so I heard the Lord say to me, and you stop me at any time, Catherine, okay? But I heard the Lord say, I want my government back. He said this a while back. He said, bring me back into government. And he began to say, I want that place back. That I had that place, and it was taken. And the reason why I believe, Catherine, that it was taken is because the church allowed it to be taken. The church sat back for the most part, and they had church. They had church in their churches, and they just handed this over to the enemy. And I'm not saying the people are the enemy. It's the system that I'm referring to. The system that needs to be dismantled. The system that's corrupt in many ways, not every way, but many ways. So I began to run and say, we have to do what's right. And I tell people, it's not hard to do right. It's not hard at all. It's hard when you start to corrupt things. That's when it becomes hard. But in Isaiah 9:6, we as believers, as Christians, we have a duly responsibility to get involved in the 7 mountains, and the government is one that I'm involved with. Isaiah 9:6-7 says this: for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, and Everlasting Father. Ephesians 1:22 speaks about, he said he put all things under his feet, and he gave all things to the church. You see, the church have to take this serious. We have a responsibility. And then he says in Proverbs 29:2, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people mourn. What about that? What about that don't we understand? And when I think about the times that we're living in real times. And I say this as I talk in Michigan, around the nation. This is not a game. We are living in real times, people. Wake up and let's.
My father used to, he used to say, I'm sorry to interrupt you. He used to say, this is not a dress rehearsal. That you have to do what you're going to do. Anyway, keep going. I'm sorry. You're right.
I'm loving it. I like that. I'm going to have to use that, Catherine. This is not a dress rehearsal. I really love that. Because it's not, right?
No.
He wants it. When I think about King David, I think about Daniel. I think about Esther. I think about Deborah. I think about the men and women of the Bible, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were all in government. They were in government. So how did we were blinded. We were deceived as a people. As a Christian, everyone, but as a people, we were deceived and we were blinded because we were told, you can't mix God and government. You Christians shouldn't be in government. But it's just the opposite. We better mix it. We better come bring it together. Go ahead, Catherine. You want to say something?
We have to, because if we're not there, then the religion of humanism steps in. Everyone believes in something. Either you want God in the government or you want humanism in the government. And we've seen a lot of humanism on both sides.
Both sides.
And so I wanted to ask you, why did you choose the GOP side, the Republican side? Were you raised that way, or was this something that you just chose for a reason?
I'm the 11th of 12 children, and we lived in LA as a kid, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Detroit, right, as children. And I ended up in Detroit. And my mom, who basically did most of the raising, right, because that's a whole nother book that I'm writing, but my mom was such a righteous woman. She was more independent. She would be considered a Kennedy Democrat. So my mom voted for truth. And that's where I got it from. She raised us in truth. Our biblical values was based on truth. So when we went to the polls, we voted on truth. Not so much a party, right? But we were a Kennedy Democrat, right? Back in the day. But she raised us to speak truth, right? And so, that was our value. So I was raised that way. And so when I turned 18, I had a brother who was involved in politics. And Governor Engler, back in the day when he was running for governor, my brother was pretty involved in the Republican Party. And I was only 18 years old. But I remember when I was 16 years old, going downtown to Detroit, and the Republican National Convention was there, and Ronald Reagan was the president at the time. And I remember as a young teenager, I would look at these buses, and it just fascinated me to see all of this red, white, and blue, and these elderly women and men on the buses. It's just something, my heart just went there, as a little, and I was like, this is awesome. And I didn't know why it was awesome at the time. I just loved it. And it was a convention going on. And I remember my brother approached me when I was 18, and he began to share with me why he is a Republican. And he began to talk about the platforms, right, of the platforms. And my mom would totally stand behind that as well. And so I said, well, I'm a Republican too, because we were raised this way. We were raised to based on our platform, not to, we didn't believe in abortion. We didn't believe in, just the different things. We didn't even believe in illegals coming illegally, things that our platforms speak to. And that's why I pray that we as conservatives not allow our platform to be tampered with anymore, unless it's unless it's with righteousness, with truth. So that's where I was rooted in that. So as I began to, I voted when I had my first time to vote. I think it was for President Daddy Bush, I believe, or no, Bush Jr. And I voted Republican because that's what the values. So I've always voted for 30 plus years that way. And we raised our children the same way. So that's that's the background of me being a conservative. But now it's Republican versus conservative. I'm a conservative. I'm one that believes in the values, the biblical values that our forefathers built our Constitution on, the Bill of Rights, and that was amended to the Constitution. So I firmly believe that we need to get back there. It's so important that we as people get back to the roots. And so I fight for that. I speak to that. And I that's my heartbeat, is that we go back to where the foundation. It's almost like I feel my heart that the ABCs of our Constitution. Let's go back to the ABCs. We've heard about the ABCs of faith, going back to the beginning, the basics. But I believe that, and I say this as I travel, we need to get back to the ABCs of government. What does our platform say? What is it? And go from that place and build upon that. Let's rebuild again, because that's how we're going to win, staying with the foundation of truth. So I think that is so important. And we can't do that apart from people that know God getting into government. I mean, we can't throw it over to the darkness. That's why we have the dark, corrupt agenda and ways that are happening, is because we allow corruption to come, because we won't allow ourselves to be there.
And it's once they have torn things apart, which they have, the dark side, it's really hard to get back. It's like the pastors that I said in my introduction, they're fighting for their lives in South Africa. It's very upsetting that they would have to register with the state in order to be able to preach. And then there's certain things they're not allowed to preach on, and they are fighting. If they let the government have that, they won't get it back in their lifetime. It will take blood. It will take sweat. It will take tears. It will take loss of life. Remember back in, I think it was in the Obama years, when he called on, I guess I don't know whether it was the Department of Justice or the DOD, whoever, they weaponized those departments to go and take sermons from the pastors who were talking about the sexual diversity issue. If they were preaching on it, he wanted all their notes, and they were not supposed to be preaching on it. can you imagine? And some of them, they caved. And it was hard to push back. And so, yeah, we cannot let that happen. I mean, the dark side is ready to overshadow anything. So you're right.
And Catherine, what you're saying is so true too, because as I travel the state and the nation, I talk about humanity. Because see, I don't know that we have a Democratic Party anymore. I don't know that we have that. That's why many people that are Democrats with a D behind their name voted for President Trump, because it's really about the values. Because my mom had a D behind her name, but she was for truth. So there's a lot of people that are Democrat. They have the Democrat. They're they are a Democrat, registered Democrat, but they believe the way we do. They believe. So they're not the devil. People just need to be educated. So I want us to all be aware about saying that the Democrats are devils. No, they're not.
Right.
They're not. Maybe the platform is evil, but the people aren't. And I want us to be very careful. And
yes.
You and I are. We are careful, but we want others to be careful about just doing that, because I go into that realm. I go into the city of Detroit, and I'm saying these people are Democrats, but they're loving, God-fearing Christians that want what we want. And that's why education is so important. And I try to go into that realm to educate. I say, educate, educate, educate. And that's how I realized that I was a conservative, because I was educated by my brother. And my mother was more like, said, Democrat, independent. And it's something you said about over in Africa, how they're being so maligned and persecuted. But you know what? South Africa, thank you for sharing that, saying that, correcting that. I think about, let's go back. We have biblical precedent, because we talked a little bit about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We talked about Daniel. We talked about David. See, these people, they were also on the front lines, and they were persecuted in their day. Daniel, don't you ever pray again to any other God. If we find anybody that prayed against any other God, we're going to throw them into the den of lions. And then we have Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You bow down to this Baal. You bow down to this king. If you don't, we're going to heat the fire. We're going to throw you in the fire, and then we're going to heat it up 10 times hotter. We have these men, Esther. If you don't, then we're going to destroy your people. We have biblical precedents, but now let's follow what they did. They didn't bow. They didn't bow. They said, if Esther said, if I perish, I perish. Daniel said, what did he do? Daniel, not only did he kneel down and pray, he opened his windows so they can see him pray, because he believed in his God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, though you throw us in, king, we will not bow. And we know what happened. The fourth man, Jesus, got in the fire with them. We know what happened to Daniel. God went and shut the lion's mouth. We know what happened to Esther. He gave Esther favor with the king. That same God who lives inside of us, he will protect us. But we have to be to the point of, though he don't, we will not bow. We will fight and stand for our country. We will fight and stand for what's right. That's what we as leaders have to have. I think about the Black Robe Regiment, the men back in the day. They said, no, we're going to take off our preacher robes, and we're going to go out, and we're going to put on our battlefield robe, and we're going to fight, fight, fight. That's what we have to do. We cannot allow fear and intimidation to paralyze our mouth, or to paralyze what we stand for and what we believe for, knowing that our Heavenly Father is with us, and he will fight for us, and he will stand for us. But should he not, as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, we will not bow to Baal. We need a woman that's going to stand up with that type of faith and courage and wisdom. So I'm one of them, and I'm ready.
I know, and I love it. And you're right. I interviewed a woman named Lisa Ekman. I don't know if you've met her, because she was also, she was at the Turning Point America Fest last year, and she was a Democrat lobbyist for her career. It was over 20 years. And she, what she told me, she says, I didn't leave the Democrat Party, they left me. Like you say, there needs to be a re-education of people, not the way Hillary Clinton says, re-education like camps, but to tell them, to show them that party has been hijacked, and much of the GOP has been hijacked. So we need We need people like you Christians who will bring it back to, no, this is about liberty.
Yes.
In fact, I don't like to claim either side.
Correct.
I want freedom. I want to go back to the Constitution, and I'm willing to fight for it. I'm willing to speak up. I'm willing to push Christians. Just gently we've got to have people in positions of school board, city council, sheriffs, everything, and every delegates, House State Senate, everywhere. We need that conservative view in order to preserve what we have.
So true.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. We're not demonizing anybody. This has been hijacked, and I say both sides, by a group of globalists who want to run the world. Look around. This is happening everywhere. And it seems like they've captured that the Democrat side first, like the Labour Party. It's the Labour Party in Australia, or I guess over in Europe. They see all of these parties, even in Canada.
Yes.
You've got that side. They were hijacked. I don't know how that infiltrated there. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
System, it's a system that
yes.
That system. And remember the 45 stated goals to bring down America? There was a book written about the 45 stated goals, and those goals have been met to destroy, bring down America. So it's a system. And so that's why we speak, you and I, at the system is what needs to be dismantled. We don't, it's not the people that we're demonizing. We should never demonize people. We should always pray for people. And speaking of prayer, I think prayer is so vital. And people think, oh, prayer, why pray? What prayer? People dismiss prayer. But when you pray, it should fuel righteousness, fuel truth. Prayer is so important. Somebody asked me a question, Catherine. They said, Bernadette, first of all, you being a Christian, how are you going to govern the Muslims, the Hindus, and all this? And I said, that's a very easy question and a very easy answer, I should say. And I said, I'm coming in as a Christian. I'm going to govern by the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the amendments. We govern by our laws. So if we're governed by our laws, we're governing humanity. We're governing all people. We're not governing Republicans, Democrats, and independent. We're governing, or Muslims, or all these other religions. We're governing by our laws, what our forefathers put on the laws. And then someone else said something like, well, what about you're a Christian and you're coming into government. And the Lord is so smart. And I'll tell you, the Holy Spirit did say this to me. He said, Bernadette, President Trump brought who he was in government. George Bush brought who he was in government. Clinton brought who he was in government. President Clinton. President Obama brought who he was in government. President Kennedy brought who he was in government. He said, you bring who you are. See, they brought who they were, whether they were Muslim, whether they were Catholic, whether they were Baptist, whatever. But when we come into government, we bring who we are. So I can bring who I am in government, and I'm going to govern by the books, right? And if we need anything changed, then we go through our proper process to get things changed. It's not that hard, Catherine. It really isn't. It's just doing what's right. It's what's key.
Our founders of this country were very, very wise because they had been through the ringer. They felt the boot of London, of England, on their necks, of the British government, and they wanted to get away from it, and it chased them over here. and it's still, it has been a very formidable presence over our country. They want to take it, just now it's like a global government. And ever since I was very young, I remember those Coca-Cola commercials.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that. You're probably younger than me, but it was like they would hold their hands and it was like a bunch of hippies. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. And
Yes.
they were all together. And it was like, this was the beginning of us being raised in the globalist thought. Like everybody's the same. There's no uniqueness. That is incredibly unbiblical.
Yes.
God made us uniquely different, and we should be, be happy about that, because there's no one else like us. We're each individual, and we bring that to the table, and we're stronger that way than if we're just one big blob out there, everyone thinking the same, doing the same. I think we're more creative when we have people to bounce things off of.
That's right.
That's my pedestal.
Oh, I love it. What about flowers? I mean, even our Heavenly Father, the Creator, He knew. He didn't just have one flower. They all were the same color. They all were alike. No, we have a variety of flowers and beautiful orchids and different shapes, size, colors. I mean, that's His idea, right? That's a God idea for us to be different, correct? And
yes.
we all don't have the same abilities. That's another thing. People know and that's another thing about a leader. A great leader must be able to discern the times and seasons that we're living in. And also, it's so important. And they don't have to know everything, but they must have the wisdom to put people around them that are expertise in the areas that they need to help govern. It's not that hard, but it goes back to seeking the face of God, right? And Him giving us the wisdom to discern what's happening. And as we discern, He gives us the answer how to bring this thing into full fruition the right way. That's the Creator that we serve. And I remember my son Titus was on, when my kids they all played ASO soccer back when they were in elementary school. And so we had 8 of them, 7 of them played soccer and among other sports. But I remember my son Titus was especially gifted in soccer. They even wanted him to travel. But when he was in elementary school on ASO soccer, he scored goalie after goalie after goalie. He was just getting there. He just would dominate because there was a gifting that he had. So what they did is I remember that's when I began to see the beginning of, whoa, they began to pull him out of the game. And because he was scoring too many goalies, not allowing others to protect. It wasn't that he wasn't allowing, he was just dominating. So they would set, if he only could make a certain amount of goalies, and then they set him down. So no longer he couldn't use his gift. So then they put him on defense. He stopped every goalie from coming in. So then they set him down again because they didn't think it was fair. Everyone needed a trophy. So I remember seeing
the beginning of socialism. Yeah.
So personally, we've seen that as a family. And so that's not a God ideal. Like you said earlier, Catherine, it's not biblical.
No. And yes, that was not that way when I was a child, a young person. People, if you have a ribbon, you earned it. If you got something in school, you were awarded because you excelled, you earned it. Yes. It wasn't that, everybody gets this honorable mention. Right. No, you earned it.
If people felt that way, do you think the ones that are gifted, even academia, if they're gifted in science or gifted in math, if everyone's going to get the same score, or if everyone's going to get the same trophy in soccer, they're not going to want to work, right?
Nope.
They're going to work hard for it.
And that's proven too. If I was my undergrad was in a Bachelor of Science in Economics, and it's proven if there's a certain point where if you're taxed at a certain level, you're not going to work any harder to gain extra money, because you're just going to be taxed more and you're going to actually net less. So it's a balance. And that's if there's equity, then that's a race to the bottom. Equality is something completely different, where everyone is treated equally for their, and everything's based on merit, and that's the way it should be. It's like that in heaven.
Yes.
That's God's way. He says, people will be judged, they'll be judged differently. And he even says that that we need to use those talents when he's talking about the 10 talents and the 5 and the 1.
You're
and
so
we need to use what we're given. So, well, do you want to talk about your book real quickly so people know how talented you are? Aside from being an amazing woman, you're an authoress. So
yeah, I'll share a little bit how that book came about. You know, my whole life, if I have time, you let me know if I have time to share a little bit about this. My entire life I would write because I would see things, I would dream things, and they would come to pass. I mean, my whole life. I'm talking about when I'm 8 years old up until my age now. And I'm sitting there, and I remember. So I have journals and journals of just things inside of me. And people would always ask me to write a book, but I was writing for myself to remember, to just write down, to go back as my reference, what was spoken to me, what was said to me. So I remember during COVID, when COVID hit, I had some people over in India that wanted me to teach them some things. So every Sunday before our service, I would teach them what the Lord was saying to me. So it was through the entire COVID for years. But I remember I would wake up and I would just feel this words coming out of me. That's literally all I can say. And I just began to write what was coming out of my spirit. I would write. So through COVID, I would write and I would send it out. I would put it on Facebook and I'll send it to the delegates because I'm in politics, and I would send it to the delegates what's going on and what I heard and what I believe is happening, what's going to happen. And I would just write it and I would send it out. Well, little did I know that after that happened, I sent to write a book. Someone said, and I said, well, what? I don't have a book. I know I have journals of and the Lord said, what I was preparing you for, the first book is what I want out, is what I've been telling you during COVID. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that when I would wake up and write encouraging words to people, that would turn out to be in a book. But that's what it turned out. And that wasn't even the motive or the heart. I just want to get the stuff out so people can know what's happening and what I'm hearing. So it developed into a book along with some other things that the Lord has spoken to me back in the day. So and the prophetic utterance came. I said, well, those were prophetic utterance. Those were encouraging words. So that's how I got the title, Prophetic Utterance from the Holy Spirit, Words of Encouragement, just to encourage people to stand strong. Don't be discouraged. You still have a future. You still, even if you blew it, even if you messed up. And I tell people today, Catherine, as I travel, you know, people feel like I can't get into politics because I messed up. I did this, I did that, or I was accused of this and I didn't do it, just for whatever reason. I said, please don't allow that to stop you. I said, because to me, that's just the enemy trying to paralyze your mouth. He's trying to paralyze you and cripple you. You cannot allow your past to dictate your future. You have to take whatever, whether they were lies or whether they were truth. In my case, they were just a bunch of lies, but it doesn't matter. Even if they were truth, you still have to, don't allow what your mistakes to stop you from moving in your destiny, because you still have a destiny. God has a purpose and a plan for every human being on the face of the earth. But what happens is they allow the criticism of man, just simple men. They allow the criticism of men to paralyze them. And I want them to know, don't allow men to stop your destiny. You move forward in what you're called to. Don't allow your failures, your mistakes. You use that as a platform to build upon, to tell people what not to do and what to do, and move forward into what God is asking and calling of you. So I want to tell the pastors, the teachers, those who are called in the government, those that are called into politics, don't allow your mistakes or what you didn't do and what you should have done to stop you from moving forward in what you should do.
Wow. What wonderful, encouraging words. Because many of us are always thinking of all our mess ups. And that's, I try to tell my daughters, you know, that's not from God.
Right.
God is constantly, when we fall, he picks us up and we move on. We do better. Or, you know, or he teaches us, okay, this is why. Let's do it this way. So but he doesn't condemn. We repent, hopefully, right? That's what we're supposed to do. That's how we learn. We grow.
You know, Catherine, the Lord gave me a picture of that, what you're saying. Maybe you can pass it on to your daughters or whoever would want to receive it. He gave me a picture of that one time because I remember back in the day, I was being like, the devil trying to condemn you for whatever. And the Lord said, Bernadette, I don't condemn, I convict. He's the only one that I know that can correct you in your wrong and yet love you at the same time, and you feel the love. He said, picture, you had at the time 7 children. He said, when you were teaching them how to walk, he literally gave me this picture. He said, they would literally fall 100 times, so to speak. Often is what I'm doing. And he said, what would you do? He said, I would encourage them. I said, Lord, I would encourage them. Get up. You can make it. You can make it. He said, then they take 1 step and they fall. You're like, you made 1 step. Get back up. They made 2 steps, 3 steps. You didn't condemn them. You encouraged them to get back up. And before you know it, they started walking and running. He said, that's how I am to my people. He said, I'm never condemning. I'm always saying, get back up. You can make it. Keep running, keep going forward. I'm not a condemner, I'm a convictor. I convict you. When I convict you, I don't condemn you. And if I don't condemn you, I'm loving you. So get back up and run the race.
I love that. Love it. Oh my goodness. This has been so much fun letting you just talk, because you have, it's a great story. And I know that it's encouraging to people out there to hear stories like yours. And throughout your talking, I really felt that there's somebody out there that this is for. I've never said that before. I've never had that feeling before. So if that's you out there, look, Bernadette, do you I know you have a website, but
Yes,
can
ma'am.
people reach out to you to
Yes.
if they feel like, okay, I'm led to do this, I need to get involved,
Yes.
I need some advice?
I would love it. And I have people, I would love it, because this is why we exist, Catherine. This is the very heartbeat of God. And when you're walking in your calling, it's a rest. It's not a work. So I want to encourage your viewers, please, if they want to reach out to me, I can give you my number. It's 616-375-7080. They can go to my website, bernadettesmith.net. My email, bernadettesmith1990@gmail.com, because it is so important that we help each other, because the whole world, if we don't hold each other's hand up, if we don't educate or encourage, they're after all of us. They're not concerned, they're after humanity. And that's why we need to be for humanity. We ought to be for all people. We ought to be ready to lend a helping hand to educate people, not to tear people down because of their belief. No, we help build them up in the right belief. Isn't that so important?
It's incredibly important. I'm glad you brought that up, because this is a spiritual battle of epic proportions. And when we say we're talking about people who have really bought into the lies of the enemy, which is our adversary, the devil. And I know that might sound crazy to some people, but if you don't recognize that spiritual component, all your work is going to be in vain, and you are going to be on the wrong side of history, and not safe at all. Because the enemy doesn't care. He gets his job done and he moves on. Look what happened to Judas in Scripture. And that's what he does. He uses people. He does condemn, not like God. We can be used by God, or we can be used by the enemy, but that's a whole different podcast. Anyway, Bernadette, thank you so much. And everybody, please, if you're feeling led to lead in your local chapters of whatever, even at the city council level, Bernadette's story is amazing, how she did step by step, and God kept leading her to a different level, and each time preparing her for the next level. So thank you so much for spending time here, Bernadette.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor being on your show, and God bless you, and God bless your viewers.
Thank you. God bless you too.
Bye-bye.